Come on. There we go. Welcome to my office. It's time to have a chat with Ulysses. Ulysses is a comic book creator and a podcaster and a reviewer and all things comic book, which for me is really interesting because my stuff that I do is largely comic book based, although most of my knowledge comes out of the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. I pretty much stopped collecting and reading after that. So I'm going to hand it over to Ulysses, and he's going to tell us about his projects and his podcast and a whole bunch of other stuff, I'm hoping, and I'm going to learn something.
So thanks for having me, James. I am a Canadian comic book creator, creating the series Spirit Girl. We're on number 3 now. I am working on number 4, and it's what if Superman had never left Smallville is sort of the conceit, except she's a girl, and in a rural small town, but she's going to stay there. She's not going to go to Metropolis,
Fair enough.
So that's the idea, and it pulls in all of these ideas about superhero and fantasy, and I don't pull in just from the Bronze Age comics that I'm inspired by. I also I pull in Lord of the Rings and all this stuff that I've read about, right? So it's an odyssey of learning how to make comics. And then the Substack is comicsodyssey.substack.ca, and it's all things comics, but also the creative process, inspiration. There's a weekly podcast about comics. It's mostly we look at a comic book and we analyze it in agonizing detail with a high level of nerd enthusiasm.
That's excellent. That's what I did in high school. That's when I was into comics. That's what we used to do. We used to get absolutely right into it. In fact, I did my grade 13 independent study in my English class. I did. We had in Ontario at that time there was a grade 13, and at the end of the year, to try and give you the sense of being like a university course, they had you write a thesis for each of these grade 13 courses. And mine for grade 13 was about comics as a literary medium, separate and distinct from short stories, separate and distinct from, because it's not the kind of thing that if you can write a short story, that doesn't mean you can write a comic, and vice versa. They're not necessarily the same skill. Certainly, obviously, the art, but even just the writing aspect of it is different. You have to think of it in a very different way than if you're writing a prose. That same prose story almost never has, if you were to put it in front of somebody, have them read it, and then they had the ability to sketch it as a comic, they would never come up with the comic that you create separately. It's not the same. It's not the same skill set at all. So yeah, I love the Lord of the Rings reference. That's fantastic. So you bring in other parts of you said it, your fandom, your nerdism to the comic process. What's that like? Like what's it like to take? Yeah, it says the guy standing in front of the Spider-Man what's it like? What does it do for you in terms of trying to separate what you're creating from the source that you were talking about, from that sort of, so that it's not just a Superman's a girl in Smallville?
Oh yeah. I don't know. I don't really think about it a lot. I threw myself in because my philosophy is it's better to do something badly than not do something. So I published a video recently where me and my co-host Henry looked through the first 3 issues of Spirit Girl and then the advanced pencils for Spirit Girl 4 and compared. And so the growth of is huge, just because I kept doing it. So I wasn't really thinking about it that much. I just launched myself with the idea, not really 100% completed, but now I've got like a multi-page story Bible, and I've got 30 issues planned out, and it's starting to take shape. Now I know that how it differentiates itself from the regular superhero genre. So, but
Okay.
at the beginning, I didn't really know, but now I know I'm pulling in. So the it's in the superhero genre, you're in the current day. That's sort of the conceit. And we could say it's like urban fantasy, but it's like I'm in a rural area, and I think fantasy is better is better to kind of
Fair.
express the rural character, if you will. So I'm pulling in more and more and more of the fantasy stuff. For instance, like the government of Northland, which is the world where the stories take place, is a monarchy. So we've got a king, but it's the stories take place in the 80s. So you got that contrast, right? Of how does that work? How does that change things, and what kind of factions develop out of a fantasy kingdom, but with all the '80s stuff in it, right?
That's
So yeah,
fantastic.
that was
So
fun.
kings and leg warmers and big hair, maybe. I have to the 30 issues planned out. Is that like, have you sort of fully arced it out as in, okay, beginning and middle and end, or is that just 30 issues? I know what I'm doing for the next 30 issues, and then who knows, there might be another 30 after that.
Yeah, so I have an end. I know where the story ends for Spirit Girl, the titular character, who's
Okay.
not on the cover, oddly enough. But
I like that.
I
I think that's great.
I know how her story ends. So there's an end, but in the world building process, I've created it so that stories can be told in this world forever. After my passing, if someone wants to pick it up and tell like
Love it.
pirate stories or whatever they want to tell,
Yeah.
space stories or whatever they want, it's big enough for that. But I'm going to stick with Spirit Girl and gradually just pull in characters in and out. So the 30 issues is the main things I want to put the character through,
Okay.
and then a whole bunch of one shots, because I like the idea of one shots. So each book is going to be 32 pages with a crossword in the back or some kind
Nice.
of puzzle,
Nice.
and so this it's kind of like it's more like a magazine is how I think about it.
Okay.
So if the story is 22 pages, then the book is 32. So I got 8 pages I got to fill out. So it might be another comic, might be prose. I might pull in people to collaborate. Who knows, right?
Very nice. I
But
like it.
and then I like the idea of the one shots after, kind of like the X Files model or Deep Space Nine, where it was like that sweet spot of you got the satisfaction if you watch the whole thing, you get a big arc, but you can tune in that week and you're probably going to get a story.
Yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
love
So people can pick up issue 5, say, and they don't have to have read 1 to 4. They have a story, and I
as
kind of like that. Yeah.
as creators of long form where you're going through multiple issues, or in my case multiple books, I think that's critical, because you cannot, once you've gotten more than two of these things out in the world, you can't guarantee that the person who picks up the first one will pick
Yeah.
up the right one.
Yeah.
You can't, there's no way you can guarantee that that person won't jump into book number 4 or 6 or 3 or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to give them a story every single time, that if they never read another thing and they run across somebody 10 years from now who says, oh, I read this comic book by Ulysses, they can say, I read that one and I loved it, but I never found any more by the guy, and they can have a conversation.
Yeah.
To have it, I know some creators prefer to, this is number 1, read here and then keep going, because you won't understand what's going on if you don't. I get that. I understand it. You're writing this big thing and you want it to sort of be understood. I do understand that. But I think for me anyway, and it sounds like for you too, what I'm trying to do is put together that giant thing, but you don't need to understand the giant thing. The giant thing is
Yeah.
is if you're a fan, you'll love it. And once you get into it, you won't be able to stop. But if you're just a casual reader and you want to buy one of my books, you'll enjoy it. You can put it down and walk away and never read me again. And you won't have a bad experience from that, because I don't ask you to have a bunch of lore that you couldn't possibly know unless you've read the first 10 books.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds,
plus,
sounds very similar, with a similar idea. I think that's fantastic.
Well, we don't have the benefit of like the power of established franchises over the last 80 years that people are addicted to collecting. We're just some guys, so we need to give them each time it's a full thing.
It's an experience, and they come out of it. If they enjoy it, then they'll look for the next one. At least that's the hope. But but that's the key, right? Is that if they pull in the middle, if they find a copy of Spirit Girl #4 in the library, and just to see what it's all about, they read it, they haven't sort of missed anything by not reading 1 to 3 first. Yes, they'll get more story out of it if they go back and fill it in, but they can enjoy #4 as a standalone. That's the comic books that I grew up with. Even the ones where the story was a 6-issue story, you could pick up comic book #4 in that story. And it was satisfying. You got an adventure that was 22 pages long, and okay, it may have had it to be continued, but the story itself was still satisfying. And that's, to me, that's key. I've never really thought about it the way like you are, with having 30 issues sort of planned out. I have a universe built, and I have a giant board behind me with all my stuff on, but it's not specifically planned out by books. I have a whole board full of book ideas, and eventually and I write a book a month, so it's there's going to be a lot. But to know that you've got 30 issues planned out, and to know sort of what the transition is, that's fantastic. And for the reader to know that, I think you should put that up front in every book. Like, I've got 30 of these planned. If you enjoy this by the end of it, pick up the next one, because we're going to do it.
Well, that leads me to a question. Like, what do you think? Like, if I say I have 32 issues planned, which is interesting, should I tell people which characters, like give teasers of characters or villains that are going to come up later, or should I wait for the surprise? Or
wow, I live on that edge every day, because I have these moments where I'm like, I don't want to tell them, because if I tell them, it spoils it. But then I realize, yes, but I've only sold a tiny little number of books. So if I don't tell them, if I don't put out the big thing that's so cool that I can't wait to tell everybody about it, if I don't make that public, then 8 people in the world are ever going to find out about it. And that's it, because nobody else will know, because I haven't said anything. So as hard as it is for us as creators to spoil it, I think you have to. I think as the small creator, if it's hooky, if it's gonna pull people in, because you've got this thing where, hey, you know what, my Shazam is my Captain Marvel is a trans boy with an artificial leg, and he gets powers, and he's got Mr. Mind stuck in his head, making him do bad things. That's a spoiler, but hey, if that's gonna make people read my book, spoiler alert, because I have to get it out there. I have to tell people about it. Otherwise, they're never gonna know, or a small, tiny portion of people are gonna know. And it's not going to do me any good in the long run. If you're George R.R. Martin, okay, maybe you don't want the spoiler to go out, because 10 million people are going to see it on a show when you finally get that made. We're not there, unfortunately, and the chances of us getting there, at least within the time frame of something we'd spoil today, pretty slim. I'm not optimistic about that happening. So unfortunately, I have to live in the world where I force myself to do that, and it's uncomfortable, because I like giving people that surprise. I like that fun. Here's my book. It's really cool. There's a great twist, but if they're not going to pick it up unless they know what the twist is, then I got to spoil it. No choice.
Right. Yeah.
So your podcast, you do it with Henry Brown, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, Henry's the more or less official co-host. I don't want to put him on the hot seat, because
he's coming on April 10th. So I'm gonna meet Henry Brown on April 10th, and we're gonna be doing the same thing. So
Insofar as I'm concerned, he's welcome to be the permanent co-host. But he shows up every week, which is I'm grateful for.
Fantastic.
So I do that with Henry, and Henry's got a great love of Golden Age comics, which is he's helped me kind of reframe my perspective on Golden Age comics and kind of appreciate them more. And we look at a lot of the classic stuff. Like yesterday, recording an episode on Tintin.
Ooh, okay.
And the episode that is coming out next is a Batman from 1986 or something, or 1988 or something. So it's really all over the place. Whatever is of interest, we just kind of throw ourselves in, and then I pull in guest people too, just because it's fun to hang out and talking about comics. So if you ever want to come in and talk about classic comics, just let me know.
In researching my project, it started from a Superman kernel. That was the idea that actually started my whole insanity that I'm doing with this universe, is this Superman idea that I still have not spoiled. It's one of the few that I'm keeping really close to the vest because I think it's great. But I wanted to fund it. I had no way to do it. So this whole writing books and going on Substack, all this stuff is in service of hopefully finding an audience that is willing to support me when it's time to start thinking about how to put this thing into animation. That's what I want to do. That's what I'm dying to do with this picture, this story. But the thing is that when it all sort of kicked off, and I started looking into public domain, because that's what sort of started it, was knowing that he was coming to the public domain in 10 years. That forced me to push my look back from the comics I grew up with in the 70s, 80s, and 90s to the 30s and 40s and early 50s, where some companies created characters and went out of business, so they're now in the public domain and I can use them, where some characters went into public domain because they weren't properly filed copyright wise, and eventually in most cases like DC and early Marvel stuff will come into the public domain because of the 95-year rule starting in 2024. I had not really read or looked at many of those books from that era at all, because I grew up with, so I'm Jim Aparo. Jim Aparo's my Batman ride or die.
Like this.
Yeah, see that. I mean, obviously I'd read that one. I have a reprint of that. But I mean, the rest of the catalog of that era is so different than the comic books that we're talking about. The sort of the stuff I grew up with, late Silver Age and into the modern age of comics, is nothing like what was going on. And I mean, they were innovative, and they were seat of the pants, and they were fast. They were under the gun, and they were goofy. Oh my God, they were goofy. There was some.
Did you ever check out those Plastic Man from the Golden Age?
Oh, he's Plastic Man. Police Comics #1 is public domain. It never got.
Oh.
Plastic Man is on my list, and he's actually one of the ones I'm really looking forward to. See, like DC, I can't put.
So good.
Oh, amazing! I can't put Plastic Man on a book cover because of DC Comics trademark. They own the name, but the character himself, Police Comics #1. That whole company went bankrupt and never renewed anything. So. Police Comics had, let me think, it was Plastic Man, it's Phantom Lady, Doll Man, and I think Black Condor, all in that same, they're all from that same company in that same era, and they're all public domain. Now, Plastic Man, nobody really knows he's public domain because DC uses him and they keep him sort of front and center.
Right.
But they're not going to advertise that. They're not going to go, say, oh, yeah, by the way, it's public domain. Feel free to use it. They're never going to. Same with Captain Marvel. They don't, they own the trademark, so they can stick the name on the cover and nobody else can. But the character himself, thanks to the way the copyright laws, they can't stop me from putting my spin on Captain Marvel and calling the book Say the Magic Word and having Captain Marvel be in there as Captain Marvel. My version, I actually crib a lot less from DC than I thought I would, because it turns out the kernel of the idea is great, but I wanted to twist it around and play with it a little bit. So mine, Billy Batson's a girl. She's an indigenous girl from northern Manitoba. The pantheon of gods that makes Shazam is North and South American gods. Shazam herself is not an ancient wizard. Shazam is actually a mantle that passes from person to person and culture to culture. So there have been Norse Captain Marvels, there have been Egyptian Captain Marvels, there have been Hindu Captain Marvels, all throughout history. I've only actually written about the one, which is set in the modern age, 2026. But I can go back, thanks to the way this all, I've created the universe and I've created the way this works. I can go back and make a Hindu Captain Marvel tomorrow that, exists in 1473 and has adventures in that area of the world that's nobody's ever seen before. And I'm going to. it's on the list. But the point that I was making is that there's so many of these characters and the way that they were created in those days was so, for lack of a better word, so wacky. Like they just went for it. You have to imagine that these guys were drawing like 10 pages a day, like just slamming out the books, because there's so much from the era and it's all there, and they're all the same creators. It's all Otto Binder, and the same names crop up again and again and again and again. And you realize after reading a bunch of them, that's why they have characters like the Wizard, who gets his speed powers from an infusion of mongoose blood. Because they just had they're like, oh, we need a speed guy. We need something fast. We do this. Bill, what do you think? Mongoose blood. Okay, fair enough. Go, and off they went. That's how they did it. And
because that's the third villain they created that hour or something.
Exactly. And there's a manic energy to that I'm trying to sort of pull in for my books. That's why one of the reasons I write a book a month is I'm like, you know what? I draft them, I read them through, I cut the worst bits, I make it as tidy as I can, I send it to my human editor, who does whatever she does. She sends it back to me. I take about 70% of her suggestions, publish. That's it. There's no, it's like, this is pulp 101. I go fast and I go hard, and they come out in a hurry. And I promise you, there's going to be one first week of every month, because that's just how I write. And it's a lot more work, but it's also a lot of fun, because I just pick an idea off my board and I go, okay, this month we're doing, and away we go. Next month, either Zorro and Solomon Kane, or possibly John Carter or Mars. I haven't quite decided yet, but it's on the list. We'll figure it out.
Very cool.
Yeah. So other than Spirit Girl, what else is going on? Like, you've got the podcast, you've got Spirit Girl, you've got reviews on Substack. Anything else that you want to talk about before we wrap up for the night?
Yeah. So subscribe to the Substack. There's a lot. I'm putting out a lot of stuff. There's about 3 times a week. There's something to look at. Creative inspiration, but I want to use this opportunity to plug Henry. I know he's coming on the show, but I think he's a good writer. He's a successful novelist, a smart guy, very sincere, and he's coming up with a very, very interesting idea for a graphic novel that involves pulling in different generational archetypes into the same time frame, and I think I'm excited about it. He's been releasing trailers for the characters, and that's really got me intrigued. So I think people should check out Henry Brown. His handle is Machine Trooper on Substack. And if this gets published, put his link, because I think it's going to be a good book, and he's got a Kickstarter coming soon.
I will add Machine Trooper to the body of the text when this goes onto my page. Thanks so much for coming on. This has been a blast. We're going to do this again. We've had a good little chat about this. Next time we'll talk about, I don't know, something else. We'll figure out some other comic book. Maybe we'll just attack it from a whole different range. I don't know. These talks so much fun, because every time I get on with one of you guys, whether it's a comic book creator, somebody who creates action figures, a writer, whatever, I learn something new, and I find some new stuff, and I cannot wait to read Spirit Girl. She sounds amazing. She sounds like a lot of fun. So again, enjoy Ulysses at Substack. Check out Spirit Girl. Check out his Substack. Check out Henry Brown's Substack at Machine Trooper. Again, the links will all be below. And if you're enjoying my stuff, of course, come back, check back often. There's going to be one of these as often as I can possibly do them. So we'll see you again soon. Thanks so much, Ulysses. That's been a blast.
Thank you, James.
Have a good night, man.